and thrilled to be asked to speak today. And I don't think you need a lot of information on me. I am an ordained Unity minister. I'm going to tell you a little more about me in a few moments, just because they kind of fit with what I want to talk about today, which is change. And gosh, everything we've been singing and hearing kind of leads right into that, especially how good can I stand? Is that what it was? How good can you stand? Yeah, because change is likely going to be necessary for you to stand more good. I'll just tell you that. You know, I just wanted to do this, Jeremy. I hope this doesn't mess anything up. I don't know that I ever gave a talk in the round. This is kind of cool. Maybe I could figure out how to walk the labyrinth while I talk now. That wouldn't be. I don't think that would really be that good of a plan. I will tell you, and I'll mention it some more, but I will tell you that I was pleased this past year to publish my first book. It's called Seek Until You're Astonished, Finding the Mystery of God in the Question. And B did make the lovely offer of allowing me to put some of those in the bookstore, so if you decided you wanted to read about it, you could buy one. And so we've reached the time of year where you often hear the saying, there are two things in life that are certain, death and taxes. I want to suggest that there's a third, change. Everything around us constantly changes. Nature changes. People change. Cultures change. I think it's inevitable. I think it's as inevitable as taxes and death, frankly. And thinking of change, just kind of hold this phrase in mind as we think about some other things. Pain pushes, vision pulls. So we're going to talk today about hooray for change. Jean and Mary opened a business selling a new product, and they flourished. The business was going great. But a new product came along that could do everything their product could and more. It was cutting edge. People said this new product was going to replace the old one. But as they considered the possibility of adding that or changing to that, they realized there'd be a lot of expense in doing that. They'd have to completely retrain the sales force. They'd have to get a lot of new stock, new inventory. And so they decided, because of the cost, not to make the change. But Jean and Mary, is that the names I used to start with? Well, whoever these people were surprised when they went out of business after only 25 years, because they decided instead of starting to sell computers, they would continue to sell typewriters. I could hear the pain in some of your responses. I've observed in myself and others that there is a human tendency to resist change. I think almost at every point where the possibility of change comes along, we tend to resist it. But pain can actually push us to changing things. Pain brings, what we're talking about this month, divine discomfort, or this new word that I learned, uncomfortability. I don't think that's really a word, but I can't wait to see at the end of the year if that gets added to Webster's. You know, they always do a list at at the end of the year. I'm anxious to see if that happens. Now, pain, of course, can come in a number of different forms. It can come in as physical pain, which most of us, I'm sure, have experienced at some point or another. We're witnessing Reverend Chris experience physical pain right now. I joked with him a little bit about some of the change that might be needed when you realize you might be too old to keep riding on a skateboard. But certainly we are affirming quick recovery and healing and ease for him in that process. A few years ago, when I was doing some traveling, doing consulting work with Unity churches, I found myself with some time in the Memphis airport. And I came across there a lovely display of pictures and articles memorializing the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And as I stood and looked at that and read it, it was very moving. It didn't necessarily push me to change because I already believed in equality and that sort of thing, but it moved me to deepen my sensitivity, to deepen my awareness, and if there were things I could do to change. But one of the most significant experiences of pain I've had was a spiritual pain. You see, I was raised in an evangelical church and home, went to an evangelical college and seminary, was ordained as an evangelical minister, and served for 12 years. And sometimes I say suddenly, but it really wasn't suddenly, but I reached a point where I just sort of looked around and I went, you know, everybody here is happy but me, because I don't believe this stuff anymore that I'm teaching. And so I made a pretty significant change in that I left the church of my childhood and began a 19-year career as a YMCA director. Pain pushes. And our first response to pain usually is to seek relief of the pain. And as we seek relief, we often look for the cause. What caused this pain? Now, finding the cause to pain may or may not help. It may or may not relieve it. But it can motivate us to create a vision of a different outcome, of a different experience. Because vision helps to move our focus from the cause of the pain to the solution. Vision pulls. And vision, I can say to you very personally, can be life-changing. You probably know some tools for creating a vision, but just to maybe help you think of others if you want to work at having a vision. People use vision boards. That's one way. The white stone ceremony, which we do, is a way of creating a vision and even marking that so that we carry it with us through the year to remember what the vision is. Meditation, whether it's meditation of being mindless, just kind of finding that spot where our heart and mind connect and nothing else. It can be mindfulness, like the folks were doing as they walked the labyrinth this morning, very aware of each thing. So certainly gratitude practices are a very valuable way to be grateful for what's going on and to find new vision. Vision pulls. But it has to be more than a dream. It means setting intentions It's not just having the vision of what could be, but it's actually taking steps in that direction, setting an intention and moving toward the intention. Billy Cox said this about vision: life will only change when you become more committed to your dreams than you are to your comfort zone. Reverend Chris touched on that last week, that comfort zone where we sometimes get, and even though we might be experiencing some pain, even though it may not be everything we'd like it to be, our life, still, it's often more comfortable to stay where we are, to keep doing what we're doing, than to make the changes that are required for us to rise up and do something different with our lives. So, let me just tell you a little more about my journey out of the evangelical church and into the New Thought churches. As I said, I came to the realization that that was no longer my belief system. I was questioning really almost everything that I'd been taught, everything that I'd believed for years. And questioning can be scary when you're questioning something as intimate as your belief system. And so I made the change, and frankly, I was making the change primarily for relief from the pain. I really didn't, at that point, have a great vision about what else. In fact, I didn't know what I was going to do when I left that church. I found myself in a kind of a spiritual wilderness, because I knew I still had some beliefs. I knew I still had some faith. I knew I still thought there was something greater than what I knew at that point, but I didn't know where to find that. I dragged Cindy to several different churches of different denominations to see how it might work. And one of the things that she would do is we would go to these churches that had liturgy, where you either responded or repeated things like, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. I'm such an awful person, and that kind of thing. And Cindy, who was a cognitive behavior therapist, would say to me, I'm not saying that. I don't believe that stuff. Now, just a little added thing here. Several years later, when I had discovered unity and began to study it and actually became a unity minister, now I'm up talking to people about change the way you look at things, things change. And you can change your thoughts and change your feelings. And she would say to me, that's what I've been telling you. I said, yeah, but you didn't put it in theological language where I could understand it. But I did make that change, and I discovered New Thought. And think about it, I literally changed careers in my late 30s. And I had been trained at that point really to do nothing else but be a minister. Yeah, I had some music ability. I had studied some music, and so I was able to get the job as part-time music director at Unity Temple on the Plaza, which was a large and wonderful church, and I learned more about Unity. But it was actually a number of years later when I was faced with another crisis, this time a job crisis, a loss of a job crisis, that I began to really dig in and study at that time, mostly Fillmore and other pioneers around that time, like Ernest Holmes and others. And and meditate and get into that. And so what happened was I was gradually not only changing careers, but changing my whole belief system. I now had to understand what it was like to no longer have that God out there somewhere that was a being that I didn't know where it was to begin with, and I'd always only called it He, and that wasn't working so well, and there were just a number of things that I changed and have continued to change. I continue to be on that path and ask questions, thus my book. Finding the mystery of God in the question, seeking answers, but realizing I didn't necessarily have to have all the answers. Last week, Reverend Chris had a quote from Brene Brown, who I also like, and I wanted to share with you today actually it's another sentence in that same paragraph from the quote he used, but I wanted to read you the whole paragraph. When we're faced with information that challenges what we believe, our first instinct is to make the discomfort, irritation, and vulnerability go away by resolving the dissonance, rejecting new information, decreasing its importance, or avoiding it altogether. In these challenging moments of dissonance, she writes, we need to stay curious and resist choosing comfort over courage. It's brave to invite new information to the table, to sit with it and hear it out. And I would add, it's brave to ask questions. Even questioning previously unquestioned answers. So Jean and Mary, from my opening story, felt the pain because they chose not to change. In my case, I changed immediately to find comfort, relief from the spiritual pain, but I didn't really develop the vision or find the vision until I had already moved in that direction. Which is to say, there are a variety of ways of changing and getting there. For me, I made significant changes, but the vision didn't really come until I took action. But here's what I think. I think forward thinkers, cutting edge thinkers, new thought thinkers, which we all are. I think we can create the vision before the push of pain. I think we can anticipate the need to change as we develop our vision, and in the process, not have to have at least maybe as much pain to move us, to change us. So I want to close with this affirmation. Pain pushes, vision pulls, and I use both to rise to my highest self and help create a world that works for all. Would you say it with me together? Pain pushes, vision pulls, and I use both to rise to my highest self and help create a world that works for all. So let us take that into a moment of prayer. We are grateful, even for the pain that sometimes come and sometimes is needed to move us to change. We are grateful for the vision that pulls us to rise up, that pulls us to change, that pulls us to wonder, how much good can I stand How much better could it be? We are grateful for communities like CSL Cape Coral that support us in that process. We are grateful for leaders that have written books that support us and encourage us and give us new ideas for changing. And we are grateful, yes, even for the pain of changing. Because we know it is what we are called to. It is what we are, is good, is love. And so we give ourselves not only to the dreaming, but to the acting on the dream, to the taking of steps in that direction. And we do so affirming that the good is already there, that the love, the life, the strength is already present even before we recognize it. Because we know it is who we are. And we affirm this with the statement, so it is.